Good morning. I hope you're enjoying the fall weather. In the Twin Cities, it is sunny and cool, a beautiful autumn day, just right for taking a walk and letting nature soothe your heart and mind. Barbara Brown Taylor, Episcopal priest, theologian, and professor of religion, wrote in her book, Holy Envy, that preachers learn early on that we preach the sermons we most need to hear. When I read that sentence, I was very happy, not to mention more than a little relieved, because this is exactly how I approach my talks, as a learning experience for myself and hopefully for those who listen. Not that I equate myself to an accomplished speaker, minister, and author like Taylor. I consider myself an amateur in the world of ministers and speakers, someone who maybe has a good idea now and then and passes it on to others. Today, I want to talk about what I learned about faith and service, how they are connected, and what they do for each other. We have heard about service from both Melanie and Asha the last 3 weeks as part of this month's theme about service. We have learned over the past weeks that in service we participate in the holy, finding it in both ourselves and in others. But what motivates us to be of service when in the first place? Where does the impetus for being of service originate within us? What is it that compels us to offer ourselves, our gifts, our experiences to others in the hope that somehow, because our lives have become better, we can help their lives to be better too? As both Melanie and Asha have mentioned, through our service to others, our own healing continues, transforming into joy, happiness, and peace. But does this mean that being of service is purely motivated by self-interest? Just to make ourselves feel good, to be seen and valued, or because it looks good on our resume? I think we would all answer no to this last question. A true desire to serve involves more than simply wanting to look good. So then, why? Why serve? Well, if you notice the title of this talk, Faith and Service, then you probably know my answer to this question. I believe we are inspired to serve by our faith in the divine, the universe, our Creator, or whatever is sacred to us. According to Merriam-Webster, faith is a firm belief in something for which there is no proof, complete trust. Speaking from the Christian tradition, Father Richard Rohr says faith is not an affirmation of a creed, an intellectual acceptance of God, or a system of beliefs. It is a just and generous way of life, rooted in contemplation and expressed in compassion as a loving way of life. It is a foundational confidence or trust that God cares about what is happening right now. The Reverend Charles Stanley puts it another way. Basically, he says, there are two paths you can walk, faith or fear. It's impossible to simultaneously trust God and not trust God. And many centuries ago, St. Paul taught that the only thing that matters is faith expressing itself in love. The Quran states that nothing in this world should be clearer to a true believer than faith. The Quran also directs its people to help one another in acts of piety and righteousness. Muslims believe they must be compassionate because everyone is a special creation of Allah. Giving to charity and helping others are considered good deeds, and there should be no expectation of anything in return. The poet and mystic Khalil Gibran wrote that faith is a knowledge within the heart beyond the reach of proof. And in Buddhism, practicing generosity is believed to help train the mind in a way conducive to attaining enlightenment. To this end, Buddha dedicated his entire life for the cause of others, for the uplifting of humanity at large. Mahatma Gandhi said, "There is nothing that wastes the body like worry. And one who has any faith in God should be ashamed to worry about anything whatsoever. In the Jewish tradition, our soul is believed to be spiritually predisposed to a spiritual nature, an inborn faith and love of God inherited from our forefathers. The most important teaching of Judaism is that there is one God who wants people to do what is just and compassionate. Judaism teaches that all people are made in the image of God and deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Well, I could go on like this for quite a while, but I think you get the idea. Faith, trust, love, and service. They all go together, and faith is the foundation. Understanding what faith means is important to me, and I want it to be important to you too. When I was much younger, still a teenager living at home, my father left us. As I saw it, he just decided he'd had enough and left. He left all 6 kids and my mother. I always thought he felt like life was passing him by, and he was afraid he'd miss all the fun. As an adult, I understand there was more to it than that, but at that time I could not fathom how or why he would make such a decision. Life was not easy for my mother after that. She never had enough money to quite make ends meet, and with so many children, it seemed like there was always too much demand on her time for her attention and to get around to all of us. She drank too much, and she was understandably stressed, tried not to show it, and so was stressed even more. To make it worse, Mother was quite distraught about being divorced. We were Catholic, and divorce was not condoned by the church. Well, I remember asking her one day how she was able to handle everything and still keep her faith that God was looking after her. Her answer was really quite simple, and yet it encompassed the whole of her life. I have my faith, she said. Of all the things my mother said and taught me during her life, that one sentence, I have my faith, has stuck with me the longest and most profoundly. Even as a kid, although I didn't exactly comprehend the depth of her statement, I understood the breadth and conviction, the realness that her trust in God was complete, enduring, and sustaining. And with those 4 simple yet compelling words, my life was changed, though I did not even realize it at the time. Since that day, during all the ups and downs of my own life, I've had many chances to remind myself that I have my faith. I don't pretend that my own trust and confidence in the divine presence never wavered. There have been many times I doubted. I doubted anyone, anywhere was looking after me, much less some benevolent, invisible man in the sky. I have argued, blamed, despaired, and almost given up on there being a compassionate higher power, either without or within myself, on whom I could depend. Almost, but not quite. My faith might have died down to embers at times, but even buried in the ashes, the spark always stayed alive long enough for me to eventually let it grow into a steady, abiding glow that was stronger each time it was fanned into new life. Over the years, I have learned that faith is not only the foundation for spiritual growth, but also that spiritual practices strengthen and grow our faith. Faith is not simply something we have. It is a fullness of life we experience. And one of the ways we experience it is through the spiritual practice of sharing ourselves in service to others. There is a Bible study that you may have heard that directly speaks to both faith and service. It is the story of the blind man who was healed by Jesus. In Luke 18, it goes like this. As Jesus approached Jericho, a blind man was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard a crowd going by, he asked what was happening. They told him, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. Then he shouted, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Those who were in front sternly ordered him to be quiet, but he shouted even more loudly, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stood still and ordered the man to be brought to him. And when he came near, Jesus asked him, "What do you want me to do for you?" The man said, "Lord, let me see again." And Jesus said to him, "Receive your sight. Your faith has saved you." Immediately the man regained his sight and followed him, glorifying God, and all the people, when they saw it, praised God. So what does this story tell us? Well, I can see three things. First, and most obvious, is that the blind man's faith in God allows his eyesight to be restored. Second, Jesus shows great love for this man in his willingness to be of service to him by healing his eyes. And finally, Jesus teaches us to focus on what is truly important. And what is truly important is blessing the lives of others by serving them in whatever way we can. Barbara Brown Taylor wrote that faith is being certain who God is and what God wants of us. I believe that being of and in service to others is the way we come to know who both God is and what she wants of us. This became clear for me when I attended seminary. Each of us are called to use the gifts, skills, and abilities we have been given. Through serving, I've learned that great joy comes from serving others. When we are sharing ourselves with others, taking our focus off ourselves and placing it on others, we are standing on holy ground. Looking into the face and eyes of another person, that is when we see the divine and experience the kind of joy we were made for. As Reverend Melanie has said, in service, we participate in the holy, finding it in ourselves and in others. I believe our life purpose is to be happy, and the way we can be happy is by being a visible expression of the image, the love, and the compassion of the divine. Contrary to the conventions of our moralistic culture, this emphasis on happiness and selfhood is not selfish. Each of us is a unique aspect of the Creator. Our deepest calling is to grow into our own authentic selfhood, whether or not it conforms to some image of who we ought to be. As we do so, we will not only find the joy that every human being seeks, we will also find our path of authentic service in this world. Father Moore's organization, the Center for Action and Contemplation, was founded on the principle that we learn and are healed by committing ourselves to others, especially those at the margins. All we have to do, he says, is discover our gift, even if it is just one thing, and use it for the good of all. Service is opening a door in what looked like a wall. Your kindness may make all the difference to someone who is suffering or going through a difficult time. I'm not going to get into listing all the ways we can be of service, but I do want to mention one spiritual practice that is so simple we can do it anywhere, anytime, for anyone, and that is the practice of encounter. For this practice, all you have to do is make eye contact with the people you meet, family, friends, and strangers alike, acknowledging them with just a look and a smile, seeing, recognizing, and accepting both the humanity and the divinity looking back at you. Love of stranger. According to Jonathan Sacks, former chief rabbi of Great Britain, the Hebrew Bible in one verse commands you shall love your neighbor as yourself. But in no fewer than 36 places, it commands us to love the stranger. Taylor teaches that encountering and seeing another human being is as close to God as we may ever get. This is where the divine presence shows up, in the unique presence of the person standing right in front of us. To serve the other in this way, to treat each encounter as sacred and holy, can change us. Loving our neighbor as if that person were our own self, with all the shortcomings, imperfections, peculiarities, loving kindness, generosity, and compassion that make up who we are. That love and sacred service will teach us everything we need to know. As humans, we share physical, mental, and emotional commonalities while also being spiritually unique. As Taylor writes, in one way or another, every one of us has gotten the message that God made us different that we might know one another, and that how we treat one another is the best expression of our beliefs. When we serve other people, we are not only able to see outside of ourselves, we are able to see the beauty and good that takes us beyond ourselves. Moreover, on a more practical level, serving others is good for our mental health, our emotional well-being, and our self-esteem. And the laws of the universe have shown time and time again that those who serve others are more successful themselves. Saint Francis of Assisi told his brothers, "No one showed me what I had to do." And then at the very end of his life, he told them, "I have done what is mine." You do not need me or anyone else to tell you what is yours or how to do it. I have no authority over anyone but myself on this earth, so I cannot be anyone else's voice of authority, their spiritual leader, or even their teacher. But I can be your friend, your companion, your servant. And my loving service to you today is simply to remind you of some things you have heard before and that you already know, or that you can discover for yourselves, because they are already in your heart. We are on this earth to be happy, to love and be loved, to live in relationship with other human beings and with the earth, and to grow into the fullness of being both human and divine. As for me, as Taylor puts it, I have decided I will keep faith in God, in God's faith in me, and in all the companions whom God has given me to help see the world as she sees it, so that together we may find a way to realize the divine vision. If some of us do not yet know who we are going to be tomorrow, then it is enough for us to give thanks for today while we treat each other as well as we know how. Thank you for letting me be of service to you today.